We love it. Well, take us all the way back, you know, growing up, what were some of those musical heroes or superheroes or cartoons? What was in your mind that kind of formulated Thor?
Well, I was a big fan of Superman, of course. I had all the comics and the Green Lantern and not only followed comics, but was into the adventures of Superman, George Reeves. And I was fascinated, you know, with his life and how he lived in Hollywood and you know what he did with the TV series as a young kid growing up in the 50s. I love science fiction, Invaders from Mars. Then also Steve Reeves, another Reeves, Hercules Unchained. These were all the fodder that basically was the catalyst for my career.
Sure. And as far as musically goes, who were your heroes?
Musically, I was, as time went on, right, I started playing accordion, right, because my parents wanted me to play accordion. But then as time went on into the 60s, I got into the Doors, the Beatles, and I started playing bass guitar. And then I got into different bands like Man, Iron Falcon, and different things like that, right?
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you grew up in the Vancouver area, or where were you at that time?
At that time, I grew up in the Vancouver area.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it like, you know, back in the 60s in Vancouver, you know, 60s and 70s? What was that scene like?
Well, Vancouver wanted to be like LA. You know, we were growing up there. We were admiring all the bands that were coming out of California. Jefferson Airplane, and of course the Doors, as I mentioned. And of course, we loved the British invasion. There's a lot of British influence in British Columbia, where I grew up, and Canada in general. So the Beatles were very important, and I was a huge Beatle fan. In fact, our first band was called the Ticks, which is like a wood tick. You know, we wanted to have an insect name.
Yeah.
But nothing too sucky, so I thought, well, a tick is kind of a bloodsucker, so a little tougher name. But the Ticks, and then as the music got heavier for us, and we got into Iron, Butterfly, and Zeppelin, well, then, you know, along came Iron Falcon.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Boy, these guys are making a lot of noise over here.
Yeah, moving some dishes, I hear.
Yeah.
Now tell us
ready for my dinner.
Sure. Now, when were the first times you would get a chance to go over the border and come down to Seattle and kind of feel the American vibe?
Well, that's when I was into bodybuilding, right? And I started bodybuilding at a very young age. 12 years old, you know, starting to win titles already. And then I thought, you know, I would see the guys that were, again, California. To me, California was the Shangri-La. You had guys like Dave Draper in the magazines, in the Weeder magazines, Larry Scott, and these guys were the Golden Boys. So I thought, wow, look at these guys. They're on the beach, girls draped around them, you know, the beach blonde hair. It was like, hey, that's the place for me. And so, you know, I got closer and closer, and then I would go to like contests like the Mr. International in Seattle. You know, and then from there down to Portland for the Mr. Western USA, and the next venture right down to Muscle Beach, training alongside of Arnold and the champions, and entering contests in California.
So it seemed like a fantasy land. You're in Hollywood. You're on Venice Beach. You got the bikinis and the sand and the music. The Doors are from Venice. I mean, all
That's
that
right.
must have been incredible.
The Doors. You know, the Doors were one of the greatest bands to me of all time. And, you know, to read about them playing the Whiskey and all these kind of places, even tonight, all these years later, you know, I know that it's really cool to me, because they're one of my favorite bands, to play right in Hollywood, right, so close to where the Whiskey is, and, you know, Loaded is a very popular place to play, and it's got that vibe. You know, as I expected it was back in the day of the Doors in '67, and when they were playing there.
Sure. So you had the musical interest from early on, and then bodybuilding simultaneously. So was it always music and bodybuilding simultaneously?
Yes, yeah, it became that way because I started training at 7 years old, you know, and that's why I entered contests so young. My body started developing quite quickly, and playing accordion, then I learned the scales, and then it didn't take long to evolve into bass, right, and in guitar, and then I started writing a lot of songs even as a youth.
Yeah, it's amazing. So now, obviously, in the mid '70s, we had the evolution of theatrical rock with
Yes.
Alice Cooper Band and Kiss and all that coming out. Did that help fuel the thought of being able to combine the theatrics of the bodybuilding with the music?
Absolutely. The glitter rock era was one of my favorite eras.
Yeah.
The early 70s. Not only did old rock and roll have a resurgence again, but it was combined with the likes of Alice Cooper and Elton John, Crocodile Rock. He get all
Right.
dressed up wild and crazy, and
Sure, David
and
Bowie.
Bowie with, I mean, Spiders from Mars was just an incredible album.
Yeah.
And Ronson and all those guys would get all glittered up, and the show was amazing. So the bigger show that you had, the wilder it was. So I thought, you know, if Alice Cooper could hang himself, and Bowie was the alien from Mars, yeah, then what I was going to become was a rock and roll gladiator.
Yeah.
And I was going to not just come on stage and sing and get all dressed up in gear and sword and sorcery outfits, but I was going to do strength feats like bend steel with my bare hands like Superman did, and smash bricks with my fists, and then blow up and explode hot water bottles, lifetime guaranteed hot water bottles, to show my lung power. They would get about this big and just scare the whole audience, you know, sometimes even bigger, and they would just explode like into a loud boom, which would, I called myself the Evil Knievel of rock, because I would sometimes get knocked unconscious.
Amazing. Well, I know early on, coming through Hollywood, you know, the Merv Griffin show, which
Yes.
taped right here, you know, by Capitol Records, and the whole, you know, Hollywood and Vine discovered you. Tell us about that experience, getting on the Merv show.
Yeah, well, Merv took his show over to Las Vegas, and he was running it out of Caesar's Palace. I happened at that time to be starring in a show called Red Hot and Blue.
Yeah.
You know, and I was John Michael Thor starring in Red Hot and Blue at the Aladdin Hotel. In fact, we launched the refurbished, in 1976, the refurbished Aladdin Hotel on the Strip. And in the other room was Neil Diamond, you know. I was in the other room doing my show, so I was rubbing shoulders with some of the greats. And so what happened then was that we were doing a show, and then Merv Griffin came by.
So Las Vegas must have blown your mind too, with all the theatrics
Las
in the
Vegas
show.
was tremendous, and I met Liberace there, and he was a true showman. I thought Merv Griffin was very like a fatherly figure. He encouraged me to do well on the show. It was my first national American show that I ever did, and I have to thank him for launching my career that way to another level, because he saw my show, he saw that I had talent, or felt I had talent, and invited me on this national show from Caesar's Palace, live from Caesar's Palace, so he can't make any mistakes. And we did the show, and it went over like gangbusters, and gave me tremendous opportunities.
That's amazing. Now, I know you were getting all sorts of now record interest from the labels and all that.
Yes.
Tell us how RCA Records came to sign you, and what that evolution happened.
What happened is I had a band called Thor and the Imps, and Thor with Frank Soto on guitar, and they're these small guys, and I would lift them up over my head, and we would tour, and so we recorded a lot of the songs that were going to go on Keep the Dogs Away. And what happened was, you know, when I was going down to Las Vegas, they felt they were too heavy, and so thus, you know, we used other backup band members, and then we did Merv Griffin. It was the Mort Lindsay Orchestra. But that being said, I came back to Toronto and I started recording the Keep the Dogs Away album. And then I actually licensed it through my company, God of Thunder Productions, to RCA Records. So I try to be a businessman over the years and retain my rights to my albums, and I would license albums rather than sign directly to a label.
Wow. So you had some foresight and
Yeah.
kind of an entrepreneur. And I know you went to England at that point and secured Motorhead's manager at the time. Tell us about taking this overseas and the reaction over there.
Well, we got invited to perform over in England at the Marquee, where the Yardbirds played, and many other bands.
The Who and
Bowie himself.
Yeah.
And just tons of the great bands. And then what we did was come over there, and we were lucky to astound the crowd, and even Jimmy Page from Zeppelin was in the audience.
Wow.
And the next day, the headlines, Melody Maker and everything, just gave us incredible headlines, amazing press, and even Kerrang, which is the Bible of metal at the time, said he came, he Thor, he conquered, and that kind of gave us another break at that time in 1984 there to go to another level.
Sure. So now, obviously, when Keep the Dogs Away came out, this was kind of in the beginning of punk rock. Now, obviously, there's all these scenes, with metal and punk and all that. How did you, survive that, or how did you, come through that era? What was your music that, survived that?
Well, the thing is Keep the Dogs Away was considered a punk album. Punk magazine claimed it's one of the greatest albums ever heard, and that we used to be on the punk charts in like '78. There was Keep the Dogs Away, Ramones, Blondie on the punk charts, which was pretty wild, because there's a fine line between punk and metal, right? So and many people call our music power pop. Keep the Dogs Away, if you listen to it, is different than Unchained, which came along later. And so our music got heavier as time went on, and then when we hit in the early 80s, like 83, 84, with Unchained and then Only the Strong, it was a heavier sound, right? It was a heavier sound that was going on.
Sure.
More metal.
But obviously, music is the universal language, so whether you took it over to England or Germany or from Canada to the U.S.
It's a lifestyle.
Sure.
People live it forever.
People want to be, entertained. They want to escape, and you're giving them some fantasy and theatrics with what you're doing. Any interesting stories about you performing on stage these theatrics, and any crazy things happening or anything back in the day?
Oh, all kinds of things happened. I mean, I tried all kinds of different strength feats. I was experimenting. I'd try to rip license plates in two, and my hands would bleed, or I'd lift the heaviest person in the audience up with my neck, and the platform would break. It was a 400-pound person, and we went and tumbled into the crowd. I tried to blow up truck inner tubes and knock myself out. I tried many things, a jackhammer. One guy did a jackhammer on me, and it broke my ribs. And there were just so many things. And then I've had naked girls jump on stage, and those are more pleasant type of
a little better
things
than
would
getting
happen.
your ribs hurt.
But there was times when the audience got pretty wild, almost like a mania, when they would attack the stage.
Wow.
And it got sometimes scary, right? Especially when they would come on the stage, just go berserk, and the amps would be being knocked over, and I didn't know what was going to happen. It was like a riot,
Amazing. So it was a release for the audience and the band, just that connection of energy coming back and forth.
I think if you look at the new Only the Strong DVD, it's called Only the Strongest in our new package. Here it is, right here on Cleopatra Records. You'll see that the energy of the band was phenomenal. It It was
Yes.
absolutely phenomenal, and it carried out into the crowd, bounced back to us again, and kept multiplying. You know,
Wow.
like email. You know,
Sure, sure.
you know, we were the originators of the social network, I think, at that time, with just the vibes that were going through.
Yeah.
Through
Well, you
space,
were
time
obviously a
and space.
huge influence on like Man of War and these people that
Yeah.
adopted what you guys were doing.
We were before, Man of War. We started in '73, right?
Yeah.
So we were doing that kind of stuff before that.
Of
the
course.
Gladiator rock,
Of
the
course.
originators of
Innovators.
Gladiator rock and muscle rock, right?
That's amazing. Now, tell us all about the new release and what we can expect on this.
I'm very excited about the new release that's got booklets in there, all kinds of pictures, all kinds of information, and it's a beautiful painting that we had done back then. And I created this logo, right, and also this logo. I created this back in '73, and it's still like Kiss's logo. It's still is something that represents the band, right? And it's a full Thor experience.
Yes.
You see the show, even from different angles, from stage looking out into the crowd, and so it's like you're on stage with us, so you get that kind of feeling. But there's bonus tracks that were never released before on there, and it's got really excellent digital remastered quality, with the only the strong songs itself.
Yes.
And I look back on it, it's like, hey, I wrote some pretty good tunes. I'm not a bad writer, and I continue to write, and I've got some new plans with a new album coming up as well.
Sure. Now, all that you've seen through the years and the changes in the music business and society and everything, what advice do you give to that young performer coming up today? Maybe the band, the garage right up the street here, or someone in their bedroom singing in their mirror. What do you tell them that they need to focus on to have any kind of longevity?
You just got to believe in yourself. That's number one.
Yeah.
Don't give up, even if there's obstacles. Never give up. Tonight we're going to show a movie, or it's a forthcoming movie about my life. It took 15 years in the making. It's called I Am Thor. We're going to show a long trailer of it, about 3-minute trailer tonight at the event. And the movie is about never giving up. It's not just about me. It's about all the obstacles I had to overcome to try to get anywhere. And it's not easy. Nothing's easy in life. So, believe in yourself, and you can do it. You can do it.
That's amazing. Now, what keeps you inspired? Obviously, the legacy of Thor has been going on now for decades. What inspires you every day, and what is left to accomplish?
I'm into many things. I believe that this entertainment business is all encompassing. I feel I'm a multimedia entertainer, and one thing I really like about Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, what they're doing right now is they have a team called the LA Kiss, which is they keep developing their brand and going to other territories, just like I have done with the Vancouver Millionaires Hockey Club. And this is my team. I've resurrected this team, the Vancouver Blazers. And notice there's the Kings colors on there,
Yes.
hey? The King, LA Kings fan as well.
Sure.
And I really hope they win the Stanley Cup. That's all fun, right? I meld all these things together, just like I put together muscles and metal. I sports and rock and movies, writing a book. I'm having so much fun. If I had any more fun, there'd be two of me. Thor. I just want to tell you about believing in yourself. You can do it. This is how we get things done with indie power.